Hello all, welcome to study 54 of the Solving Studies to Improve Chess Calculation series. This study was composed by Ottó Bláthy. He was an Hungarian chess composer. Besides that, he was also an electrical engineer, and is famous also by some very important inventions like electric transformer, voltage regulator, AC watt hour meter, turbo generator, high efficient turbo generator, the motor capacitor for the single phase AC, electric motor, and so on. If you notice here in the, let me change here for the thumbnail, in the big photo, you can see Ottó Bláthy in the armature of a Gans turbo generator in 1904. So you see how he was one of the first proficient inventors of the electrical modern era. And in the small photo, let me see if I can point it here, in the middle. You can see is a watt meter, one of the first. It was the first watt meter ever. So it's an interesting person, and besides that, he also present us with some interesting studies. This one is not the most typical from him. It's just one of the earliest. 1806 is the year. I think you are going to enjoy. I don't know if I will present one of the most crazy ones that he has, because he normally bases the solution in strategic and tactical approaches and not the precise ones more related to studies. Nevertheless, I think this one is one of the precise ones, so I'm going to present it here. And I hope you also are going to enjoy it. So, as ever, if you haven't watched the guide before going for the solution, if you are already ready, then you know the countdown will start, and then you have 10 minutes, and then I see you again with the solution. And here we are, and as always, let's start with the first right move, the only move possible to win this one, bishop e1, exclamation mark. So this is a very particular situation, a very particular position, because white is completely out-materialized. It has only one bishop against a bishop, a rook, and two pawns. So basically, we need to play for a checkmate if you want to win. So the idea, the strategic idea around this study is the key diagonal. It's going to be the a1, h8 diagonal. So if the bishop is able to arrive there, it's going to deliver a checkmate. And that's why we need to control those squares with the rook. So for the defensive side, it's pretty simple. If it gives one free tempo, it goes for an easy win. Like, for example, if you attack the rook and the rook comes here and then we move and not threatening checkmate, well, the rook can just go for the b file. Next move will deliver a check as the checking mating square from the bishop is still controlled, and then it's very easy for black to win. So when white plays, it needs to go to a threatening mating square. So over here we already saw that rook controls the checking. So the bishop can come over here, but now we have a simple solution from black. We simply just keep controlling the squares. Notice that now the bishop needs to threat again a checking mate, so it's forced to come to h4, but we simply control it again by going back, and we reach the same position. There's no progression from white, so it's going to be a draw, not a win. And the other solution is basically the same. We are now threatening to go to d4, but as you can see, black can control it very easily. And now white, even if it wants just a draw, well, it could check with bishop d4. Notice here, bishop d4, forcing the rook to take. And now we got a draw by stalemate because the king can't move. But if white tries to go other way, like for example over here, well, we get the same situation. The rook goes to f5, and there's no progression. We get again the same position we already know. We can't progress. So the only possible move is to go to e1. So now we are threatening to go to c3. Of course, the difference here is the rook can't protect from the sideway, so g3 is not an option for the rook. So basically the rook is forced to come to c5 to control the checking mate square. So now it's white to play, and we need, of course, the beauty of this study is for us to find what is the right path threatening the checkmate or threatening to win the rook that we can pose until we find a solution. So here we just play bishop b4. So now we are attacking the rook. At the same time, the rook can't leave the c file, of course, because we are threatening always to checkmate. And also is advisable to go to a light square, but can't be any light square, because if we go, for example, over here, well, then the bishop comes to a3, and there's no way we can protect the b2 square anymore. So the rook is not able to go to b4 and protect the checkmate in the next move. So the best the rook can do is offer the rook, but then next move it's going to be checkmate. Uh, so over here, the rook goes to a light square. Any light square, it's going to be a loss. Let's see, for example, this one. This is more or less the main line. We simply move the bishop to f8. So now we are threatening to come to the g7 square. The rook is forced to, again, protect it. Needs to go to g6, as the protection from the side is not possible, because if we go over here, we simply attack the rook, and then we are able to checkmate the king. The rook can't protect the access to d5 unless sacrifice the rook. That's why the dark squares are not good to play against the bishop. Here, of course, the bishop is dominating the rook, but nevertheless, in a normal position, if we allow the bishop to attack the rook in the dark square, we are just giving more options for the other side. So here, the best move for the defense is to go g6. Now we attack again from the c5 position, so the threat now is to go to d4. Of course, the rook can't go protect from the d file, so needs to come to the g4 square. And now simply the position is going to be similar to one that we saw. We move the bishop to a3 and it's game over because the rook can't protect from the b4 square, and the checkmate is going to be delivered in b2 unless, of course, the only, I would say, desperate move is to offer the rook, but after one move, it's going to be checkmate, game over. And I hope you have enjoyed this one. I don't say it's going to be an hard one, but it's a tricky one. And it's always fun to see how a bishop, a minor piece, can dominate an heavy or a one like the rook. See you again in future studies. Bye bye.